The Prime Minister is in the United States as we speak, but on the front page of The Australian and on the front page of the Financial Review, get ready, folks. We're going to probably see another interest rate cut anytime soon. RBA chief ready to cut rates again is the front page of The Australian. Governor admits surprise at slowdown. And then, of course, if you head to the front of the Fin Review, the preeminent fiscal newspaper in the country, RBA must follow global rates down. Low flags cut to prevent stronger Australian dollar. Reserve Bank of Australia Governor Philip Lowe has signalled he is preparing to cut interest rates again, possibly as early as next week, arguing he cannot ignore the fall in international borrowing costs because if the RBA did nothing, the exchange rate would jump and hurt the local economy. Lisa, good news for homeowners, one would imagine. Bad news for anyone who's heading overseas with the currency rate declining, but also people who are investing in this country are going to have to get used to incredibly low returns on their investments.
Look, Lisa, it's hard to imagine that we are here. As you say, we've had two back-to-back cuts, and look, in August they were predicting that there was a 20-30% chance that we'd see another interest rate cut. Now, before we had this speech tonight, they were saying potentially 80% cut. Now we're looking at it coming through next week. As you say, look, great news for homeowners, great news if you're out there to try to buy a home. But there's the flip side of that, and we discussed this at length. Every time we've seen one of these cuts come through, what it means to people if they've got money in the bank. And if you're looking at people who are retired, for example, what is it going to mean to them and their bottom line? It has huge ramifications.
Matt, it almost seems inevitable that at some point in the next 12 to 18 months that banks will be putting a 2 in front of variable home loan rates. Now, it's funny, I was only looking through some loan documents of mine from 2010. I was then paying 7.8%. Now, that's, 8-9 years ago, and here we are with home loan interest rates headed for a 2 in front of it. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Yeah, you and me both, Gleeso. I think I signed up for my first home loan just over a decade ago, and I certainly was paying something with a 7 in front of it. Interestingly enough, my fixed term's just about to end, and I was just speaking to my bank manager the other day, and he said that he could offer us something now with a 2 in front of it. That would have been unheard of, back 10 years ago. And then if you go back to the dark old days of the 1980s and 90s when people were paying 17%, 18% interest rates. We have a tendency to whinge our generation. Perhaps sometimes we should be grateful for what we have, because I tell you what, if you were paying 17, 18% on some of the sort of mortgages people have today, then there'd be a lot of people going broke. But I think there's a more important story in all of this, and those comments from Philip Lowe, because while, as homeowners, we might be cheering on reduced interest rates, I think the real issue here, and Philip Lowe points to this in some of his comments, is business confidence. And business confidence and consumer confidence as well is at an all-time low, it would seem. Well, not an all-time low, but really at a really serious low in this country. That's the other issue, I think, is the fact that there've been now so many of these interest rate cuts, and they don't seem to be doing much to turn that around. Now, we're about to reach a situation where if there is another cut next Tuesday, we'll hit less than 1%, 0.75. Not far to go until we hit 0. There's not many more aces in the pack there for the Reserve Bank when it comes to interest rates. So there's so many issues going on. Obviously, the issue with China is a big one. There's a real lack of confidence. The people are having trouble getting the banks to lend them money as well, which is another issue that are all creating a fairly serious situation here. So while the upside might be that the interest rates on our home loans come down, I think there's some really serious issues at play at the moment. And obviously the Reserve Bank's doing everything it can to try and address them.
Matty, you mentioned those dark days of the late 80s, early 90s. I remember my first home loan. It was at the succulent interest rate of around 17.4%. Extraordinary times, and of course, you were just lucky to keep pace with the principal, let alone the interest.